Here we go, man.
Yes, sir.
Welcome to the Dr. Mudgil podcast. I am so excited to have someone I've become a huge fan of that I think a lot of people have become fans of throughout this pandemic, and it's Cauvin, who does the most killer Trump impersonation, although you pretty much impersonate everybody. And I've been dying to get in touch with you and get your podcast for months. So, man, thank you so much for being here, man. I really appreciate you taking some time out of your day to spend with us, man.
Sure. No, my pleasure. I was, as we were talking before, I don't really use Instagram a lot until this whole thing happened. And I didn't realize I had like 100 messages on Instagram waiting for me. And I saw yours and I said, oh, this looked rude on my part, not replying for 4 months, but here I am.
Awesome. I'm so glad we were able to connect, and we were just talking about that's something that happens all the time. I send tons of messages out, and sometimes months later, folks are like, oh yeah, they're sorry, man, I missed that one. So a funny story. So one of my best friends in life went to Williams College, which you went to, and early in the pandemic.
Yes.
99. I think you're a class of 01, right?
Class of 01, correct.
So he was just sending some videos of you. This is like when we were all doing was just sitting on our asses and watching like CNN or MSNBC or whatever we watch. And there's all this Trump stuff. Mm-hmm. Trump was doing those press conferences every day. And he just started sending out videos of you. And I'd never seen you before, and they were like incredible. So all of us, there's like a group of us that are kind of on a shared text chain. We all were just like binging on your content, like waiting for the next video to come out.
Oh, thank you.
I'm certainly not alone, because I think like your Instagram, I'm just on your Instagram alone, but I know you have a YouTube channel that's very popular, but it must have been nuts, right? Like you must have been just like, there must have been one video that went nuts viral, and then all of a sudden you just blew up.
Yes. No, there was I remember when the NBA got canceled, I did a video that got like 18,000 views, however Twitter calculates views on Twitter. And I was like, oh, nice. That was real good. Great. Thrilled. 2 weeks later, I did a couple more that none popped like that. So I was like, oh, well, I guess the buzz is gone. I picked up 50 Twitter followers. That's good. It didn't cost me anything. And then on March 24th, I posted a video. It was the day that Trump said he was going to bring back the economy by Easter. As it turns out, that didn't happen. And so I did a video just on all of that, just riffed a video for 2 minutes on that before leaving to walk my dog. And, within like 3 days, it was in the millions. And it was very bizarre because I went from 4,000 Twitter followers that it had taken me, a decade to accumulate. And that was and those were hard to come by. That's road comedy. That's videos. That's doing everything you're supposed to as a comedian. And, within a week I was at 60,000 Twitter followers, and now I'm up to over 140. And yeah, it was overwhelming in a good way, but also in a way that felt like I just got, 7 years of my career that I thought I would have been on. Like if things went normally, like any other career, it would have been a normal trajectory. Instead, it was like, we're going to stagnate your career for 8 years. And then in the course of a month, you're going to be elevated to like 95% of where you thought you would have been. So it was very grateful, very overwhelming. But I guess it's good that I didn't, despite the fact that I had been very tempted several times to completely abandon my comedy pursuits. I guess it's good that I didn't.
Would you say Twitter is your biggest platform? Is that the platform you resonate most on?
Yeah, it is, because I quit Facebook a couple of years ago simply because, and I jokingly said to people, I was like, I think maybe I was so frustrated with my comedy career that I felt like, well, if I'm not going to be a successful person, maybe I can be a good person. And I like dumped my Facebook account. I was like, I don't have to contribute to the destruction of democracy. So I sort of focused on Twitter. And the Instagram, which is obviously owned by Facebook, I had it for my podcast as Trump, but now that's become sort of the alternate home, because most people have one Twitter or Instagram. I mean, there are a few people who only have Facebook, but I basically can get most of the people I want between those two platforms. So yeah, I post the videos to Instagram also, because not everybody's on Twitter.
Yeah, it's
So,
hard.
but yes, to answer your question in the longest way possible, Twitter is definitely the main place.
That's it. I literally just started using Twitter like a few months ago. I never even used it at all. You know, like Instagram. Surprisingly, TikTok is like my biggest platform.
Oh,
Oddly,
nice.
yeah.
Well, that's the new. I mean, it's always good to be big on the newest platform. I'm huge on Friendster, so you can tell where my career is going. No, but TikTok I joined reluctantly just because, and not because I even have anything against it. I was just like, I'm 41. Do I really want to join a new social media platform just to make sure I pick up a few fans here and there, you know? But that's the way everything is working now. You just have to be everywhere and keep going for the next thing, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, man. I mean, it's amazing. You know, a lot of the way I usually start have the podcast goes, like we start like way back and you know kind of bring us through the years. But you know, I think there's so much that you just said that I just want to touch on. So a big theme of my podcast is like the hustle and grind and like you know all the behind the scenes work that goes on before someone really pops. And yeah, I've just been
My entire career is all behind the scenes grind at this point.
I think that's everyone who makes it,
Right.
and, you know, in comedy or in you know even like acting or music.
Sure.
You know, it's you know, so just I'm going to just tell bits and pieces that I know. You fill in the I know, you know, you went to Williams College, like an elite college. You know, you played basketball there. It's an incredible school, you know, one of the top schools in the country. And then from there, you went to Georgetown Law School, which is an amazing law school. So obviously, your career trajectory was, you know, okay, I'm going to be a lawyer. I'm sure your parents were very, you know, they wanted you to be, you know, some kind of professional, and there was some of that,
Sure.
that like, you know, all right, I'm going to be a lawyer, but I still love comedy. And you're in law school. All this stuff is just from bios and different articles that you have out there. But you know, you did there was like it was like your second year in law school, like 2003 or something like that, and you did like there was an open mic,
Correct.
and et cetera, et cetera. And you know, you obviously were a guy who I'm sure was always like the funny guy. You know, you were doing like in high school impersonating teachers, and you know, college. You know, and you know, something just inside you was like, okay, you know, I really want to take this more seriously. Was that the time? Like, was that when you were in law school that you're like, you know, now I'm really going to give it a serious go on the side, obviously while probably studying law?
Sure. Law school is really the time where I just said, let me try. I was not thinking I needed a hobby. The truth of it is I went to law school because I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I got into some good ones. And I said, well, you know, this is very legitimate sounding. Unlike medicine, I always tell people, we'd be a better society and have more happy people if we treated law school like medical school. Not that it's as difficult, but if you had to be pre-law throughout college and then, you know, do rigorous sort of field work as a lawyer, like by the end of that process, you would have weeded out everybody like me who's just like, I don't know, it seems cool in the movies. I got good enough grades and a LSAT score. Let's try it. Because you have a lot of disillusioned lawyers who it's sort of it's the much easier path to professional legitimacy versus medicine. And if it was a lot like medicine, I can guarantee you I would have been like, oh, you know what? No. And so for me, it was, okay, I got through law school. I'm going to be a lawyer. But law school was very depressing. There's no other way. You know, my personal experience, everybody finds it stressful. But for me, I think I was dealing with some depression. My grades were not great first year. I was in a long distance relationship. Second year, I was living on my own. I had been living with a friend first year. So all of that sort of, I didn't know how to describe it, but it was more like, well, I guess I'll skip classes today. I'll get out of bed around 11. Why, you know, no big deal. And I got into this real lethargy, and it was it was going to a local bar show near my house midway through second year of law school, where it was a really fun show. I went with a buddy. We just had some beers. It was mostly, you know, no name. It was all no name comics at the time, though I do know a couple of them now who have some careers. And it was just a fun time. And it was the first time I even thought to myself, I'm like, huh, I'm funny, but I wonder if I could do that. I wonder if that could be a hobby, like something, because it was just such a fun experience going. It wasn't a comedy club show. There was something more organic and relatable because it was just a random bar show. And that's what got me going. And I tried it that summer. After second year, I said, I'm going to try it this summer. That'll be my hobby for the summer, other than, working during the summer. And I really liked it. And, it grows from there. It starts as like a fun hobby, but then you get you either get friends complimenting you, you get strangers complimenting you. And all of a sudden it builds up this little bit of, I wouldn't say ego, but a buzz. It gives you a buzz for sure, like any drug. And now you want to get more of it. You go, okay, but how do I work the club now? Now I've done some cool shows at some bars, but I want to get on I want to work the club. I want to host at the club. I want to do a spot. And from there, it snowballs until you reach a point like me, where you're like 10 years in and you're like, I'm really good. I've worked really hard. I've plateaued. And it's how you fight through, I think, that plateau. And for me, I think spite helps, as not that that's healthy, but having a sort of, I know I'm good, but if I quit, a joke I tell people, I say, if I quit comedy, I failed. But if I don't quit, I can only be failing. I haven't finished the failure process yet. So it becomes a thing of going, okay, little things. I don't know how, I'm giving you a really broad kind of synopsis, but it becomes a thing where comedy, unless you blow up, you get little successes that just keep you in. So early in my career, I got a late night credit. And then it was like, okay. And then my career went stagnant. Then it's like, I finally got to work some clubs that I'd been dying to work. And it was so fun. So you go, that's why I'm in this. Then I had a video go viral. All the while I'm putting out albums that aren't really selling that well, but I know they're good. Then I get hooked up with like, a big podcast, all on my own, and et cetera, et cetera. But you're never breaking through. Until this year, the best 2 years I had financially in a 16, now 17-year career were the 2 years where half of my income came from comedy. Never enough to be like, oh, I'm quitting the job. I'm not doing any more part-time work or full-time work. I've made it. It was more like, I make enough from comedy to make the flexibility in my life worth it, but I can't do anything other than, it's just enough money to keep doing comedy, not enough money to go, I'm now a full-time comedian. So pick whatever spot you want to jump into along that journey.
I love all that. So there's a lot that you said there. So are you familiar with Relentless? It's a book that Michael Jordan's trainer wrote. His name is Tim Grover. He's like
I'm aware of his trainer. Yeah.
He was like a behind the scenes guy with Jordan, and kind of like the guy who like Dwayne Wade, a lot of like folks like tap into. And one of the things that you said, like spite kind of inspires you, like that. Like it keeps you going. One of the things that he mentions, it's like there's being relentless, which you obviously are relentless in your pursuit of your career in comedy, is you have to like reach into that dark place and kind of have a chip on your shoulder a little bit, to motivate you. And it's okay to do that. Just what you said, that just reminded me of that little part of the book. So
no, I definitely have a chip on my shoulder, and it's the funny thing is, I've told people, like I speak in like sort of sometimes my own aphorisms, but I think they're true. I'm not trying to be cute with them, but I've told people when I look at my comedy career, I say a lot of people think comedians, are messed up people that go in looking for attention. I look at my life and say, my life was pretty good. I think comedy messed me up. And I had to then fight through, like I volunteered for it. I wasn't drafted. I was just like, oh, life's good, but I'm a little bummed out in law school. It'd be nice to have a hobby. I wasn't going, I'm so funny, I must do comedy, or, oh, I need this attention. If anything, it's the reverse. Like, I feel like I lost a lot of friends in comedy because you're prioritizing, when you get out of law school, your friends are busy either starting families or going to happy hour and doing regular social things. And you're going, well, I get out of work at 6 and then I have to do the 8 o'clock and the 9:30 open mics, or else what am I pursuing comedy for? And year after year of that, you fall into this space where there's certain comedians that maybe didn't have normal lives and they find community in the stand-up world. Maybe they're not getting up for a 9 to 5 the next morning. So they're forming bonds and relationships within comedy. And then you have people like me where it's like, well, I have friends and now I'm not seeing those friends, but you know what? That job is still calling me at 9 a.m. tomorrow. So I can't hang on a Wednesday or Thursday night till midnight because I got to get home. So so you end up sort of becoming, when I'm not pretending like I'm the only one who's had this experience, but in this experience, you end up isolating yourself by necessity because you're going to lose those friends who maybe don't understand or don't have the time to support what you're doing because they have their own lives. But you also don't form as strong connections with the people in comedy because it's not your only life. And that's why it's so important for me to sort of say, I need to make it so that I can have one life. And that can be, that would be the choice I would like to make, is stand-up comedy. But I'm still, even now, I'm exhausted because I'm still working for a law firm right now. And I've been just doing double duty this entire time. And I know how jerky that sounds. I always say this. I say, I get it. I have 2 jobs and COVID is certainly not the time to be complaining about being overemployed, but it's tiring because the law firm life is the security that I didn't have for a decade when I was just living month to month, never starving, but just sort of every month was a new month to pay the bills and try to grow your comedy career. Whereas now I know what it's like to be in that position. So the law firm gig is very stable and I'm not in a position where I trust comedy enough to ditch it. That said, this year I've been incredibly lucky and incredibly busy with comedy stuff. So it just meant this year was going to be exhausting. And like I said, better to be exhausted with a lot more work than with what obviously a lot of people are dealing with now.
Yeah, well said. You're making folks, the folks who are having tough days, you're making their days a lot lighter though with some of your stuff, which is what.
And that's funny when I hear that from people. I'm a, until this year, I was a very cynical comedian, and I make jokes. I don't try to make myself feel more important or seem more important. But, you start this year, I got a lot of messages from people that really were unnecessary. And that's why I know they were heartfelt, where they're going, this is depressing. And like turning on your videos is fun and enjoyable and something that my friends or my family, like we can laugh about. So, it made a cynical comedian go, okay, I'm never going to do comedy to be funny is always going to be the goal. I'm never going to put message or sympathy first in my comedy, but knowing that it does mean a lot that people actually genuinely, found it to be a relief from a lot of bad stuff.
Yeah, man. You're going back to your law school days. When you did that first stand, that kind of like took the plunge. Were your like friends like, dude, you got to do this. You're so funny. Like you'd be great at doing this. You should give it a shot. Or was it more like, like you were just always a funny guy and you're like, just something from internally where you're like, you had to do it.
It goes back, honestly. There's one time with friends from college. I was at it was like it wasn't a bachelorette party, but it was like a joint sort of family party for a friend's engagement. And I was holding court, not with the whole crowd, but just with our group of like 6, just doing impressions and cracking jokes. But it was the normal, almost like it could have been a cafeteria setting. It wasn't me getting up on a table and going, watch this. And a friend of mine, Scott, somebody said, you should do stand-up. You should try stand-up. And I was like, maybe. But I was a huge fan of stand-up and it never entered my mind. I was just like, oh, being funny is the way to make friends. It's the way to make women laugh. It's the way to cheer up your family. Like there was no like, oh, I can do this for real. And my friend Scott, I remember he said, well, if you do, I'll be at your first like club show. And of course, a year later, less than a year later, he would end up driving, from Philly to DC on a weeknight just to honor that promise. But yeah, that was the only time anybody ever told me I should. And it was just that seeing that show at the local bar, it made it relatable. Not that they weren't good, not that I looked at them, but when it's not Chris Rock on the stage, when it's a teacher who's moonlighting as a stand-up, it does make it more accessible. Not to say, oh, I could be better than you. It was more like, you're a regular guy and you're funny. I'm a regular guy and I'm funny. Maybe that could be something I could do. And that's basically how it started. But nobody gave me real encouragement other than that. But I did have a friend and his brother came to my very first open mic. And, you know, which was nice to have that support, because they, once again, my friends always knew me as funny. So of course, seeing you on stage doing it in a different setting is exciting for people's friends, until you do it too much, and then your friends don't come to your shows even when you're good.
That's so funny. I actually used to. When I was in med school, I always played guitar growing up, but when I was in med school, I started taking it like really, really seriously. Like I wouldn't go to class very much, and I'd have all this time like between exams. Like med school's all like, you know, chill, study your like nuts, like all nighters, take a test, and then chill for a little while. So I decided, okay, now's my time to learn how to learn jazz guitar. So I got like super into it. And then I started playing a lot in New York City when I was doing my residency. And like my first couple of gigs, my boys would come out, my friends would come out and be like, this is awesome. And then like, by the end of it, they're like, oh man, another fucking email from this guy. Like, he's another gig. Take me off the email list. You know, like. But what was your initial?
That's the circle of life in entertainment, is they want to see the novelty. Even when you stink, they're just so excited to see you in that setting. And then there's this long lull that I went through where I'm like, oh, I was on TV and I'm really good. No, you don't want to go see it anymore. And now that I've gained some fame, there have been a lot more emails coming to me instead of me sending them. So it'll be funny if, you know, friends come to a show, you know, 16 years apart, where it's like, oh, okay, good. When I was struggling, I really could have used this, the support. Now I want to save these tickets for strangers who might actually buy my albums.
Hey, was your initial material like impression stuff? Like, do you remember what you did that first show?
The first show, all I remember, it would have been June 2003. And I do know that what I did for my first set was, I remember I was so nervous that I said, oh, what if I get heckled? You know, you have all these thoughts of the worst possible comedy experiences ever. So I was like, I know what I'll do. I'll memorize my 5-minute set over the course of 2 weeks, so that even if I get booed and get rattled, I'll just hammer through the material just so I get through it, which is, for any aspiring stand-ups listening, that's a really bad way to do stand-up. You want it to feel a little more organic than that. But the only two things I remember, I think I had some jokes about Al Gore. I don't know why, but I think I had some jokes about Al Gore. I mean, I was in DC, so I knew politics might play a little better. The one joke I do remember to this day, and it was my then girlfriend kind of spotted it. There was a cab. We saw a cab go by, I guess that summer when she was visiting me, and it said "Arrive Alive" was on the cab. It sounds like a dumb joke. It sounds needed, but it said "Arrive Alive." Like that was the name of the cab company. And she said, "Did you see that?" I go, "Yeah, that's sort of setting the bar a little bit low, isn't it?" And then that was like one of my first jokes where I was like, "Oh, I saw a cab, arrive alive. Isn't that setting the bar low?" You know, like you get out and you're like, "Sir, I lost a limb. You got in a horrific car crash." Well, but technically you're still alive. So that'll be 1050. It's like a lame joke, but it was that. I do remember that. So I kind of treat that like my first joke. It may not have technically been my first joke, but it's my first set joke that I remember. So.
That's good, man. So, I know, so just kind of like hit some bullet points. Like, so
sure.
One of the things you said, like, there was enough like small successes throughout like the last, whatever, 16, 17 years almost, I guess, right?
It's been 17 now. Yeah.
That like kept you in the game. And I think like fairly early on, like a few years in, you were on like one of the late night TV shows, right?
Craig Ferguson. Yeah. Late show on CBS.
Did you do a stand-up routine?
Yes. On that? Yeah. I really did crush that set. It was comics will tell horror stories of like, oh, you send your set and you'll have to submit it 5-6 times. They'll edit it. They took out one sentence from what I submitted and that was it. And I crushed that set. And then my career got into swing where my manager, what happened was there was a writer's strike. And so the shows were shut down because they were going to have me back. They were going to schedule me for another appearance. During the strike, the person managing me got fired. I had a manager for like 4 months. they fired him, and I stayed with the agency because I'm new. And I thought, well, you're the big agency, I'll stick with you. They assigned me to somebody else who isn't really feeling me. They decide to let me go a few months later. Then the Late Late Show won't return my emails, which was weird because it was like, I've been on the show. I'm not just some stranger who's like, I'd really like to be on the show. I was like, you saw it. I was really good. So, then I spent the next few years parlaying that late light credit into some road work. But never, then the savings went away. And then by 2013, it was time to, work part-time so that I could keep doing comedy. So that was like my life for 6 years.
Were you not working at an attorney?
Sorry. Yep.
After Craig Ferguson, were you not?
No, I was basically doing document review, which is, or some people call it contract attorney work, which is basically you go to an agency and the large firms, it's always mostly large firm work because they'll be like, okay, we have a case in 3 months. Corporation X is suing Corporation B. We need, a legion of available or low-level attorneys who are willing to stare at emails and click buttons for the next 3 months. So I did that for, 5 years, I guess 4 or 5 years, because it allowed me flexibility. Like my schedule would often be like, okay, I've booked 3 weeks of road work for July. So July is going to be a fun month where I basically go to the gym, write, and do comedy. And then I have to get a job for August, September, or August, or, basically it became just a jigsaw puzzle in my life for the next 6 months, trying to make sure I had time to keep working on stand-up. I mean, I've put out 6 stand-up albums in a 15-year stretch, which is like a headliner pace, because I've always said I'm going to hold myself to what I think I'm capable of, which is headlining. And hopefully that'll happen now. But basically it was just part-time legal work from 2013 to mid 2019 until a full-time job just fell into my lap. And then I was like, I think I might quit comedy. I think I'm 40. I just got a full-time job that these jobs aren't coming by with any regularity. So I need to snatch it up. And, COVID hit. And then all of a sudden that was the apocalyptic event that my career needed to come back to life.
So I just to go back a little bit. So those 6 albums that you have, are those self-funded?
Mm-hmm.
Like, do you?
Yeah, all self-produced. I made all self-funded. One of the best decisions I made, not to get too into the weeds, but I'll just leave it at a major comedy content producer early into their rise wanted to buy my early albums as part of their distribution network. And they were like, with our platform, these albums will sell so much better. You've got to split the profits with us, but like we have such exposure. And something in it was actually my former management company had become a content company. And I just said, you guys didn't want to manage me, but you contact me 2 years later looking to get my content. And I said, my instincts just told me this is off. What I believe they knew and they knew streaming and satellite radio would become huge sources of revenue for music and, albums. And I think they wanted to build up their catalog so that they could have bragging rights and say, we have the largest catalog, because then that's how you draw in bigger fish. But I would have been just, a shrimp in their seafood platter that they could use for marketing, but they didn't care about my stuff, just the way they didn't care, I'm sure, for dozens of other artists. And I said, no, I'm good. I'm going to keep that. I'm going to keep my stuff. So I produced those albums. They get good rotation at Sirius. The most money from 2015 to 2019 that I made as a comedian was not from clubs or album sales or private gigs or anything. It was from streaming. And I thought to myself, I was like, I trusted my instincts. And part of the reason I trusted is I said, I think I'm going to make it one day. Maybe I'm wrong, but I know I've got the chops. And man, if I ever make it, if I become big time and I own all my albums and fans want to go back and buy, that's 100% coming to me in every way. And I made when I say a lot of money, I mean, if I made $36,000 in a year from comedy, $23,000 was from streaming. So it was a lifeline. It was like the reason I kept doing comedy is that I could validate it. There was a business validation that's not a ton of money, but like if for a good paying hobby, that's good money, you know? And it was enough to make me say, I'm glad I kept the rights to my stuff. I didn't fall for there's so many traps in arts in general, but in comedy especially, where it's like, oh, I can do that. Okay, I'll do that for free. I'll do that. Exposure. You get paid in exposure a lot. And I said, you know what? I think this time I'm going to trust myself and not go the cheap way out for exposure. So that, you know, that streaming money was did I even answer the question, or did I go on a tangent?
No, you did.
A self-produced album. So yes, I am very open to getting to working with someone or doing a special with a bigger platform, because now I've maxed out the kind of value of self-producing. Now I need somebody who can take me to that bigger level. So we'll see if that happens.
Yeah, I mean, you hear about all these, you know, incredible musicians who like sold the rights to their music and just are like broke, you know. So I mean, it's great that you had that foresight. So what is streaming exactly? Like Sirius would play your album and then they pay you for it or something like that on their comedy?
Yep. I mean, I didn't even know. I got a lot of rotation on Sirius for years, which was great. And I think it helped that I was putting out new content every like 2 years. There'd be a new album, and that might drag some other albums into rotation. Pandora also. Spotify pays very poorly. But you know, all those add up. And
unless you're Joe Rogan.
Yeah. Right. Well, that's why they can't pay musicians or comedians for plays, because they're handing out 9-figure deals to talent. So that's their business model is working for them, it seems. So it doesn't work for me, but that's okay.
So how did you negotiate though? Did you negotiate those deals yourself, or do you contact them? Like, how does that even happen?
Oh no. Well, Sound Exchange is a platform that I learned about several years ago. Not a platform, but it's almost like a government. They're based in DC, but they basically keep track. You submit your albums and then you get paid. I don't even know what the rate is, you know, but I just know that satellite radio pays a ton if you can get good rotation in satellite radio. Pandora pays well relative to like Apple Music and Spotify. Pandora seems to pay me the most of those platforms. This sounds like a terrible lawyer, which maybe I am, but it was just basically, there is no deal to be negotiated there. I could negotiate with Sirius if they decided I was hugely popular and a star. They might buy me out or else not play my stuff because they don't want to they don't want to hand me $250,000 at the end of the year. So they may cut, like I knew this happened with a bigger comic where they basically said he was getting so much in royalties. They wanted to cut a specific deal with him. And he said no, and then they stopped playing his stuff. So that's one way to stop paying somebody. But I'm in this, I guess, sweet spot where I can just get, I'm anonymous enough where my tens of thousands a year just keep floating through. Like this year, I don't know if somebody realized that I had blown up with the videos, but I saw a huge spike from like May to September in my royalties, which was great. I have to assume it was something to do with that, but yeah, that's a total mystery. I just know that they seem to pay pretty fairly. Like it's passive income, so as long as it's good, I see no reason to complain or rock the boat.
Hell yeah, man. One of the sort of underlying themes that I'm really getting is like this really incredible self-belief that you have, which is also like one of the themes of my podcast. Like, like knowing that you're producing valuable content, like it's good. And, I'm a big believer that, I mean, I'm cashing you out on the ascending part of your career. You're not going to talk to me. You're not going to talk to me in 6 months.
No, please. I'm very good at remembering. Like part of what comes with spite is also the good side of it is you remember those who didn't give you the short shafts, the people who showed some confidence or some niceness when you were on the way up. So no, I have like a part of my brain has all the good names and the good people to remember.
I love it, man. So, again, going back to like the little bits and pieces of success, like that kind of like drew you in. There was like a video of yours, which I saw on YouTube, where like you're wearing like a Louis C.K.
Right.
Costume. And that video I think went berserk, right? Like did that video get
Yeah.
like millions of views? Was that one?
It did. That was there was, to take it back a little bit, in 2012 I formed a group with some other comedians who are also lawyers, and it was a group called Comedians at Law. And I have to say, until it sort of ended, I actually really liked it because it was fun to be a comedian, but almost in a band environment. Like, in other words, you were going to do shows at clubs, 4 of you. It wasn't just me alone sitting in, like, that's, I'm sure musicians will talk about how being in a band is fun until it's not. It's fun. Cause it's like a team. You get to experience something as a team. And towards the end of that year, we had done some gigs, and if we'd stayed together, it might have really blown up. We might have, but I pulled the diva card a little bit, where I felt like sketches I was writing, they didn't want to give individual credit. They all wanted this collective credit. And I was like, I'm not asking for more money, but if this does fail, I'd like to showcase my specific work, not just, hey, everybody did this. So I left, and a month later, I made the Louis C.K. video, my first video on my own, got like 400,000 hits, but became very big in comedy because at that point, Louis C.K. was the undisputed king. Cover of Rolling Stone. This was not scandal tarnished Louis C.K. And if you even look at the video now, you'll see most comments are like, this is incredible. This is hilarious. But there were, a third of the comments were like, F you hater. And that was sort of the point I was trying to drive home, which is comedians in general love to critique the world. They love to say, nothing's sacred, nothing's sacred. And I was saying, well, if nothing's sacred, then certainly the comedy king, who's a celebrity now, not just some local guy who I'm picking on, he's a full-blown A-list Hollywood celebrity. He's got to be fair game too. And for a lot of comedy fans, it has this different vibe. It's personal, like you're a comedian, or if you are a comedian, it's very personal when people attack comedy. But I go, you can't say I'm allowed to attack your religion or your disability, or mock, I shouldn't say attack, but everything's fair game. But if you mock a comedian that's beloved, all of a sudden it's like, no, this guy's just a hater. No, it can't be that way. So that was kind of the point, and it was sort of proven. But that was my first, I was down in the dumps a little bit when I posted that. But I really I knew it was funny. And I even said, the makeup's got to be really good. We've got to nail this because there's going to be people who hate on it. And if it sucks, you give an opening for people to critique you on the merits while really not caring about the merits. They just want to hate on you. But if the merits are tight, then they look like haters if they insult you. But if your makeup sucks or the impression isn't good, that you give them an opening. It's like Elliot Spitzer. If you're going to go after Wall Street, you can't be sleeping with hookers because they'll find that out about you and attack you there. You've got to be perfect because they're going to attack you anyway. But if you give them a big opening, you're done.
It's over.
So yes, that's my career. I am the non-hooker Elliot Spitzer of comedy. But that was a big deal for me. And I had a couple meetings with managers that went nowhere that year. I came out with obviously a self-produced album later that year, which is one of my 2 favorites and probably my favorite album. It's called Keep My Enemies Closer. But that year I was in such a funk, and yet I produced 2 of the best things I've ever produced in comedy. And you have to sometimes not do that predictable artist thing where you say, well, I guess, tragedy and like sadness and depression, I guess that's what it takes. It's a coincidence because I've made good art when not bummed, when not depressed. I will say it seemed to flow out of me a lot faster when I was in a bad place. The same way I started doing comedy in general when I was depressed. I just started doing it then. And I think sometimes your mind is a little more active in a certain way, or introspective or thoughtful when you're moping, when maybe you're thinking about yourself a lot, I think can be a bad thing. It can make you kind of bummed, but it's also gets the brain going. But I think I've hit a better place now where the stuff I make is not doesn't require me to be in a particularly bad mood or a bad place. I think maybe that's just from years and years of doing it. You just sort of, the tools and the skills are sharper, and you don't have to maybe go through things necessarily to come up with good content.
Yeah, and there's also endless material for you to pick from. Every day there's something.
There is. Although now it'd be nice if life could get, for many, many reasons, if life could get back to normal, because I do find myself sometimes staring at the computer going, think of something that isn't in the news right now. But the problem is I've written a new hour that I'm ready to do either as an album or a special when life is back to normal and I can record. But you kind of think to yourself, you're like, well, what do I do? I'm not having life experiences really. My life is like many people. It's become grocery store, stay at home, talk to my family on the phone, stay home, stream some content, watch the news, Trump everywhere all the time. And it's like, it'd be nice for life to resume so that other things can just, emerge and stir thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw patients this morning in my New York City office, and always, sometimes I see patients like once a year. They're just coming to get their skin checked, like a skin cancer screen. But I've been in practice now there for 11 years. So I've had like relationships with these people, my patients at this point. And interesting, like 3 or 4 conversations I had today, like all the patients said the exact same thing. They're like, well, it's kind of like Groundhog's Day, like the kind of, what you described. So it's true. You kind of we all need some more flavor in our life. I think we've kind of maxed out how much we can squeeze out of like Netflix and just chilling at home. And initially it was actually a really nice thing, and I talked about I'm like, I've never spent so much time at home. I've never spent so much time with my kids. We got another dog. Like, I started playing guitar more, all of those like wonderful things about having time on my hands. But then now it gets to a point where you're almost uninspired. Like, it's like you need life experiences to, reignite inspiration, whether whatever it is that you do, even like professionally or creatively, whatever it is, that's what's neat. And we're all, I think, at our
absolutely,
at the extreme of literally squeezing every ounce of juice for like motivation, inspiration, So it's the world is in a weird place, and I think all humans are suffering right now.
Yeah. No, I remember just the first time when things were barely opening up in Jersey where I'm at, and the Starbucks had obviously been closed for months, or it was just doing drive-through for months. I don't have a car. I was like, I guess I'm not going there to read ever again. But when I could walk in there and it was all just pick up and go, but it was even just walking into my local coffee shop that wasn't my apartment or a supermarket. I was just like, oh, that's right. Like this, it was almost like you're hit, like in a movie where you're hit by a flashback of like, oh, I've been here before. And it felt, but we are not to get serious, but like, I just think as a country, there's plenty of conscientious people. I think the conscientious people outnumber the selfish people or the defiant people, but you don't need, you need 99.9% compliance. 80% compliance means we're effed for a while. Yeah. Even though that's, look at the majority and most people are doing what they do, but you have entire states where it becomes my girlfriend's sister, when mask wearing was the thing, she's in Texas, and you had people looking at them funny. Like, in other words, a mask had become, oh, you wear a mask. Whereas when I'm out in Jersey, or in New York City, the few times I've gone in, they're everywhere. It's just, that's what you have to do. It's not even a choice. It's like, this is the safety measure, and it works. It works in the aggregate, and that's what we have to be about. And we've really reached this sort of individualism farce at this point, where it's like, you can't tell me anything because then you're taking away freedom. It's like, I mean, common sense. It's not, it's not a registry that you have to, but anyway, sorry, I digress in a big way.
Interestingly, like in New York, it's almost the opposite. Like if you're not wearing your mask, if you're walking, because I'm in the city all the time, at least a week, and it's just reflexive. Like you just wear your mask, and if you see someone without a mask, you're like, oh shit, like they're not wearing a mask. It's almost like this.
Right.
Whereas like you're saying, like in Texas, it's the opposite. Oh, look at that person wearing a mask. They're suckers or whatever it is. But which is terrible. We should have been wearing masks since February. I've been saying that.
And Trump, I'm not going to get too political, although anybody who's watched any of my content can probably guess where I am. But to me, he always uses that Fauci line of, he said no masks. But of course, Fauci was saying that because he wanted the masks for the medical personnel. It wasn't that he was saying masks suck. He was like, we have limited masks. Doctors and healthcare workers and nursing home attendants should be getting masks right now. And it's been manipulated into this. Well, who knows? He said no masks. And it's very unfortunate because it really is. I remember when they were talking about wearing masks, I had a joke where I said, of course, I blow up as a comedian, clubs shut down. I get compliments on my teeth on my YouTube videos. Now they're telling me to put a mask over my mouth. I can't win. And I was like bummed about mask wearing just because I was like, I don't want to wear a mask. It's annoying. Now you're a doctor. It's a different experience for you. But I'm going, after like a week of wearing a mask, I'm like, oh, it's like annoying, but it's really not. It's not. You get used to it. We adapt. And yeah, I look forward to going places without a mask, but right now it really isn't that intrusive. Yeah. The first week it was like, oh, this sucks. And then it's like, oh, I put a mask on it. Like my face is now used to having a mask. And stop it. And we get to this. Apparently my dog, who's originally from Kentucky, she's an anti-masker. She's voting for Mitch McConnell. But yeah, it's really not that big a deal unless you make it. You have to want to make it a big deal now to not do it. Because it's just, I go to check the mail. I put it's an extra 3 seconds, and I just wear my glasses a little bit less so they don't get, sometimes they get fogged up. That's it. That's how my life has been changed by masks. Life is different in many other ways, but masks are really an insignificant change at this point.
I'm with you, man. So I just want to kind of get into some of the nuts and bolts of your content model.
Absolutely.
So you're someone who produces a lot of content. I create a lot of content. And there's a lot of work that goes into producing content that's unseen, and you're posting, I think you're basically posting to Instagram every day, right? Or multiple times a day. Yeah.
If it's not a video, it'll be something from our podcast. So there's usually probably like 6 posts a week, I'd say.
So what is your model? Like how much are you posting to each platform? Like say, what's your weekly schedule?
Sure. I guess TikTok, I've been trying to do one a day now. I've neglected TikTok, but I finally had one post that got like 34,000 views. And that finally got me from, 230 followers to 1,100, which is still, in the world of TikTok, it's nothing, but there's some action finally happening on that platform. But Twitter is the place for, since I don't have Facebook, it's basically the place where here's a serious post, here's a video, here's a couple of jokes, here's a stand-up clip. For me, I got to be posting 5 or 6 times a day minimum on Twitter. I try to space them out so they don't crowd out each other because, like anybody else, but especially me, I want people to go to the content. I want them to see it and share it. So
are these
I'd say
are these embedded in Twitter like your videos, or are they links off to other platforms?
It's both, because obviously if you're doing Twitter, just like Facebook, they want you to directly embed. But then I'll do, I try to tell people without being too needy, hey, you can also watch them on YouTube for free, but they're monetized. It's just one extra click. And then that gets me 10 cents or whatever. Because if you just upload the YouTube, hey, this got seen by 3,000 people. The embedded video, this got seen by 110,000 people. So they incentivize you to do it one way, and you're just trying to game the system so that you can make something off of it. Like I said, Instagram is usually a post a day, but Twitter is now my all-purpose platform. But what I try to do is at least once a week post a stand-up clip, which are obviously from the last couple of years, not this year, just because all I need is from those 144,000 people on Twitter, which sounds like a Jehovah's Witness. Like, I guess my account is now a Jehovah's Witness number, but the sharing, like I want some chunk of those people to become stand-up fans. I know it's not going to be all. I know the 70-year-old progressive mom of 3 from Montana may not be the biggest stand-up comedy fan. She may just like the Trump videos, and that's great. Anything that brings people to any of my comedy is welcome. But I want to try and turn like a fourth of those people into stand-up fans, because then that's still 45,000. I don't know what, 35,000. There it is. 35,000 of those people. Well, I had 4,000 fans a year ago. So if I've multiplied my stand-up fans by 7, that will have currency. Just like the fact that I simply have those numbers on social media has currency to get booked, but that'll get you booked one time. And I know I have the stand-up. Nobody ever watches my set and goes, oh, he's not that good. It becomes a matter of, if I want a headline consistently, am I selling tickets? So it's still a grind now to get the chance to shine and then to sell the tickets. And then you're in a better place. You finally reach a place where maybe you can breathe and relax and sort of focus on just trying to make another album, another special. And, but for now, it's still in this, I'm at a place that I didn't think I'd get to. I'd sort of given up on getting to this place, but I'm not at the destination yet. I'm just at a much better place to reach my destination. So this is the biggest, as I said, of all those little moments that keep you going. This was a big moment, not a little moment. I know that, but it's not the finish line either. So,
Of course.
Yeah.
Do you post everything yourself? Are you personally doing it?
Yeah, I do it myself. The only thing is, like, a lot of my videos don't have any editing, but some of my sketch videos that I've put up, almost all my sketch videos, not all, but most, I have like an editor who just helps me put together, because that's the one thing I don't have the time or the energy to like learn how to become an expert. Of course, it would be great skills to have, but that's the one thing I'm probably never going to get good at is like the editing, even no matter how easy they make it. TikTok is as easy as it. TikTok is it.
Yeah.
Anything beyond TikTok editing, I'm like, I will pay somebody to do that. That's just not my time to learn. That is not there, let alone to be like, okay, I did a video. Now let me spend another 6 hours piecing it together. Like that's for someone else to do. So that's the only part of this operation that I don't do. Is if you see a video with any kind of good graphics or editing, it's most certainly not me that did that.
Yeah, same here. I mean, I have a full-time videographer on my staff who kind of chops up the content, like all these little podcast posts and stuff.
Right.
I post everything on my own too, which, I mean, the reason why I'm bringing all of that up is it does take a lot of time. You know, it really is. Like, my wife is giving me shit for some. I am literally always on my phone because I'm either posting something, I'm responding to, like, I respond to everyone personally. Any comments that I get, or on YouTube, any comments, I respond to each and every one of those personally. I'm on this community platform where
there's no middle ground. There's no middle ground with social media. Either you're fully engaged and you're building, or you're not engaging, unless you have a nice person like you that patiently waits for a response from me many months later. A lot of people give up on you if they're like, oh, I guess he's not, so you can either build or lose, but there's really very little room to be stagnant or to cruise, to be on cruise control when it comes to this stuff, which is why can be a little like time consuming, because you sort of think, I kind of have to do this.
See, my hope is, and I really think this is going to be a reality, is, like when you have like your Netflix special, or, whatever huge HBO, whatever huge platform you're on, whenever that may be, the next
fingers crossed.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to happen. I mean, you basically I like to speak things into existence. I know that's going to happen.
Well, thank you. I like to doubt them out of it.
You know what I think is amazing? What I really want people to, if they ever go back and see this, I want them to see like how much dedication and literally years of persevering, being relentless, getting beaten down, having little tastes of success, but then getting the shit beat out of you, going to like dark places, then coming back and you're still like being true to your craft and you have a passion for it, how long it takes to make it. I mean, there really no one, and I don't care who you say is like, there's no one that hasn't grinded it out that's achieved like a tremendous amount of success. And this is all while having a career.
Right.
Like, you basically were in professional school to be an attorney. You were still working as an attorney and like, you're doing all this stuff on the side. I think that just speaks to how passionate you are about it. I mean, and you're hilarious, and I think was grateful that you're putting all that stuff out into the world. But like one day it'll be like, wow, I grinded for 20 years to get to this point where I am. And someone like yourself is not going to say, okay, now I'm done. There'll be bigger things that you want to do when you get there, just because you've been grinding at it for so long. You get there and say, okay, I'm just going to chill out now. Like, you're going to raise the bar. But yeah, I love it. Like, I think that's why I love this format, because I don't think anyone really gets to see that your story. Really, like, oh, the guy's just making some videos and he's just posting them and just he just went viral. No, it doesn't work like that. There was like 15 years of hustle before that first Trump video came out.
Right. And what I say to people is, a lot of people say to me, and most of them are being nice about it, so I don't snap at them. But they're like, what are you going to do when Trump's out of office? And I go, breathe a sigh of relief and hopefully get back to what I was doing for the preceding 15 years, which is being a really good stand-up, but now with some fans and if you like, it's like, if you like funny voice, you might not be a fan of mine. But if you like what a lot of people like, which is the creativity, the dialogue, the little jokes, the writing of it, well, that's me, the comedian, talking through that voice. That's not just, oh, he repeats Trump's phrases. It's like, no, I create within that.
Yeah.
So if you like that, you very well might like a lot of other things I do in the humor space, if I can call it that. But it is a long grind. And I think we get to the point where in comedy, you don't see a lot of people in my position, because a lot of the time people fade away. They either make it, they get a break, but I've been a middle act, which is going to be like, I think middleman is going to be the title of my, either pilot or autobiography. You don't see people being the middle act for like 11 years. You might sometimes, but like the ones with aspirations of making it to the next level, usually it's just like, oh, it's a hobby, or, oh, I quit because it was, I did it for a few years. I featured for a few years and then that was it. And I just said, I know I've got it. I'm sitting here with what it takes. I can't abandon that yet. People always say, oh, you're going to make it. And I go, I believe I hit a point around 2013 where I really said, okay, I know I'm good. But 2013 was the year between the Louis C.K. video and that album where I felt like, oh, I just hit another level. Like creatively, not career-wise, but like I am now, I'm ready. Now I'm ready for whatever the next step is, to be a headliner. It still hasn't happened, but I've been ready for 7 years, and it would have felt weird abandoning that. That's what I didn't abandon. I said, I have no faith in the business, even with all my fame, et cetera, right now. The next, I don't have a manager. I don't have an agent, and none have contacted me. So I sit there going, I still don't have any reason to have faith in the business. But the people have now seen me. More and more people have now seen what I can do. And the response has been what I thought it would be, which is, this guy's hilarious. We want to see him. So now I have to just wait for that next level where I can get that tour and that special. And I have no doubt I will deliver. Not because I do think I'm a gifted comedian, but at this point, it's money in the bank. I've been doing it 17 years. 7 or 8 years at a high level of quality. So that's not really a question of, oh, will he be good? It's just a matter of, will I get now that platform, that chance? And I'm too close now. Any thoughts I had of leaving are gone, because it's like, it'll take another 10 years for them to beat this out of me. So maybe when I'm 50, if it still hasn't happened, I'll be at another crossroads and I'll go, you know what? 27 years of my life is good enough. I'm 6'7". I probably only have 5 years left at this height. I'm gonna enjoy my 50s until it's all over.
Are you 6'7"?
Yeah.
Oh, damn.
No, I think I'm gonna scare the crap out of people that come to live shows because all they've seen is like, polo shirt up. And then they're going to be like, where's JL? And they're going to have to like look up to the second story and be like, oh, there he is.
Oh, yeah, totally. I'm going to be shocked when I see you. So, I get there's a couple things that you touched on. Well, you actually took one of the questions that I was about to ask you to see if someone had reached out to you in terms of like management or agents and stuff. But the interesting thing now is, do you follow Gary Vee at all on social media? Gary Vaynerchuk, you familiar with him?
Gary V?
Yeah, Gary Vaynerchuk. He's like a social media digital marketing guy.
Oh, no.
He's very big on Instagram, but one of like his big sort of like points in a lot of the stuff that he's puts out there is now, just because of where we are in terms of social media and so much access to exposure, it's really like it's one's own responsibility to generate the buzz around themselves and to post, because there's so much access to people now. So like how your videos are.
Sure.
It's almost like you don't need a manager or an agent who's gonna blow you up. You could blow yourself up now, which you are. I mean, you're a perfect example.
No, I got a rib removed for that exact purpose. A little vulgar humor for the podcast fans. Now, well, no, what you're saying is true, because I'll give you one example. I had an album come out in May. It was the best of coincidences. It was a Trump album. I recorded it with a friend. He produced it. And I wasn't going to do the album. And I just decided, you know what, let's do it as like a wrap up of the Trump presidency, which we assume will only be one term. We recorded it in late January in his studio, his basement studio. Okay. I go, that was fun. Good job. This will, sell 52 copies and it'll just be a nice little feather in my cap or whatever. Well, March happens. And April, I continue to grow. So the album is coming out May 1st, totally just not by any plan. But now, not only is it me with a bigger fan base, it's a Trump album. Like it's exactly what people have been liking from me. It was perfect. So it sells really well. And I say, okay, this is a weird year. There's not as much content competing. What if I say the album producer, I say, what if we get a publicist? And we make like a dark horse Grammy campaign for comedy album. This might be the only time. My name is never going to be, I might get bigger, but I'm never going to be as proportionally bigger as I am this year when so much is shut down, when people are going to social media for their entertainment. So I hire a publicist, kind of a low level publicist, but like, they're experienced. They give me assurances. We're going to do this, this, and this. They basically got me next to nothing in 3 months. What I got without them during the same time and before, Mark Maron's podcast, the Washington Post, the LA Times, that's just from people liking me on Twitter and Instagram and looking at my comedy. So I agree in terms of, I don't think I need a manager to help me get recognition, but I do need an agent for the business and the direct connections to put together a tour, to get me booked at casinos and clubs as a headliner instead of just the blind email. Now, I've worked many clubs, so I can contact the 20 clubs I've worked and ask them, and maybe half of them, maybe more, will say, sure, we'll give you 2 days to headline, boom, 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 when things are okay. But that's not good enough anymore for me. Like it's not, I need what an agent can provide. I'd love to do it all by myself. So I've managed my own career and my publicity, even with the publicist example, I've gotten tons of great A-list press just by existing and putting out content. Not even, they're contacting me, but the career step, I do need that middleman. I do need those connections. And because I want to put together a tour, I want to get a special with Showtime, HBO, whoever, Netflix, the Holy Grail, but yeah, it'd be great. You know what I mean? That's like saying, I'd like to win the lottery. Who wouldn't? But Netflix is just so big and selective and have their own criteria that, yes, I would take that, but I feel like that's total luck. I think I could make a pitch to other places with a little more, a little better chance, but who knows?
Are you still working with the publicist, or are they out of the picture at this point?
When does this episode go up?
Next week.
I think I'm a free agent. Let's just say the 3 months are up in like 5 days. And I harbor no ill will, but it just hasn't been fruitful. If I'm getting myself A- coverage, you know what I mean? If I can get myself A- coverage by just existing, the threshold is an A or above. Like, it certainly isn't B-. Like, I don't want to get worse, more burdensome opportunities. As an example, and I mean, you have a huge following on social media, but if I told you, hey, I got Mark Maron's podcast, and then somebody who I'm paying money to each month says, I got you Dr. Mudgill's podcast, that's nice, and I'll do it. But it's like, that's not bang for the buck. No offense. You know what I mean? In terms of, I want you to say, for money, if I'm doing Mark Maron, then I want to do Joe Rogan. If I'm you know what I mean? I only mean that in terms of proportional. I've done all sorts of shows. I'm happy to be here. I'm just saying, purely as an example, comparing to Mark Maron, this, if I'm paying you, I expect above Mark Maron, not parallel or a little below. So, yeah, and that's what it feels like I've gotten. So,
yeah,
sorry.
So I've worked with publicists before, and I think it's just a fucking racket. Like, it's the same exact situation that what I've been able to do for myself, advocating for myself, is like a million times better than anything any publicist has got me. And they promise you the world, and I made the mistake of, I had a publicist who was, initially when I first started, no one knew who I was. I mean, I'm a successful dermatologist in New York City, and I don't know, like, the top doctor list type of thing. But in terms of, like, just like, right, I know who this guy is. I didn't really have any particular notoriety. So I hired a publicist who got me in a bunch of magazines. So I was in like Cosmo and Vogue and like whatever, all the magazines, and I was like, oh, that's pretty good. And then I was like, okay, well, now, I want to get on TV. So I got another publicist who I paid more to, who I was on CBS and, Fox and shit like that. And then I was like, well, I want to do that.
Oh, well, sounds good so far.
Each one was like several thousands more per month. And then I finally had one that was like, well, I want to do this regularly. So then I was like, okay, cool. So if I pay some more money, then then I'll get a better shit. And that ended up being my worst publicist. I got nothing. And I was like locked into a 6-month contract, which was like, and it would drive me nuts. And every time I'd get the bill, like, she'd bill me for like the first month and the last month, and I'd have to pay for the next month at the beginning of the last month. So like within the first month, I was like $15,000 or $18,000 in. I was like, I've already paid you like whatever it is, some crazy amount of money, like $15,000, and I haven't even gotten shit yet. I was like, this seems crazy to me. So then I was
saying the publicist I just spoke to, I had a conversation with a publicist, and the reason I trust her is because she basically told me, I can't help you right now. And I said, now I actually, maybe this is just like dating where you like want the person who tells you no, but I thought she was basically pitching me like, when you have something to pitch specifically, I will work with you. And that actually will stay in my mind, because I go, okay, but this is somebody who seems to be, a little more surgically precise in their pitch, in what they plan on doing, which makes me go, oh, just like anything, specificity makes it feel more real. If you just tell me, we've got somebody who's worked here and they got all the connections, now I know that's you're being a publicist to me, not for me. You're just selling me on you. And that makes me think, I don't know if you're going to do anything for me. So yeah, sorry. I interrupted.
That's the right way to approach it. Like if you have a book or an album or something like that, yeah, it makes a lot more sense to have someone on board. All right, listen, man, I could talk to you forever, man, but I don't want to keep you. I don't want to keep you here all day. I mean, really just kind of sort of, for me, why I think this was just so awesome getting to know you better was, like, again, I love like the behind the scenes stuff and like all the grind that goes in behind the scenes. And I mean, you have like a gajillion fans, and everyone's really, really loving your stuff. And I think for a lot of folks, it's easy to say, oh wow, like, this was like easy fodder. There's like Trump is like saying stupid shit all the time, and it's like really easy to do parodies and stuff of him. And then you just kind of blew up out of nowhere, like you're a lawyer who just kind of blew up out of nowhere. And the truth is that there's so much grooming of your talent, like to be able to seize on this moment. All the impressions that you've done through the years, it really enabled you. All that hard work enabled you to sort of capitalize on this. You really made lemonade out of this shitty situation we were all in, and and added a lot of levity to a really dark time in a lot of people's lives. The last few months, 6 months, have been shitty for most people. Unless you're Jeff Bezos and all of the other who are killing it. But for all of us at home, just being able to kind of circulate your videos and text the links to your videos to each other in our various circles, it's really just provided so much value. But I think you were able to provide so much value because of the rich foundation, strong foundation that you built, really honing your comedy skills for like almost 2 decades, man.
Yeah. Well, that's a beautiful way of summarizing it. And now my pitch to my fans is, hey, remember how grateful you were during COVID? Well, now I'm on tour, so it's time for you to now it's time for payback. that was 9 hours of free content during the apocalypse, so you can pay $20 and buy 2 drinks.
Totally. We can't wait to. I personally can't wait to do that, man. I'm definitely gonna be coming down with the crew when you roll through New York, man. No doubt.
Awesome.
And
maybe now I can afford to move back to New York. How about that?
Where in Jersey are you, man?
Bloomfield. It's very nice. It's near Montclair. My brother lives in Montclair, and my girlfriend's brother's family is very close to us as well. So it was a good location, and it was, I feel like a year from now, when more people maybe are leaving the city or trying to figure out their lives in a different way, this is probably the kind of up and coming neighborhood that will then be like, oh, your rent's going way up because now there's more demand for places that are 30 minutes outside of the city that are affordable. But I lived in a studio in Midtown for 11 and a half years, really liked it, liked the centrality of the location, was very depressed leaving. And then all of a sudden this hit, and there was another silver lining to something I thought was negative. I go, oh, I have a big 2-bedroom that's not in Midtown Manhattan. I'm not in the epicenter of anything, and I have a lot more space. I think I would have gone crazy, I'm sure, in a studio in Midtown. Like, I can't go anywhere. I just have to order Seamless and stay in my 1-room apartment. It would have been, this has already been tough, as I'm sure it's been tough for so many people, but that would have been pretty excruciating, I think, by now.
Totally, man. I mean, New York, I don't know if you were in New York at all during like the height of the pandemic, but
no, just recently, like last month was my first time back, 5 months.
Yeah, it was nuts, man. If you could just tell folks where they can find you, man.
Sure.
Various platforms.
One of the easier ways is obviously jlcomedy.com. That'll just take you to my website, which has social media links, blog, album links, all that stuff. If you just remember one thing, that'll take you to everywhere you want to go. But other than that, Trump Pod, since you have a big Instagram following, Trump Pod, TRUMPPOD on Instagram, where you can just, see the videos. I think I posted a video of my dog for the first time. So like, I think I may take over that account when Trump is over or when the show is over, and transition, cultivate those fans into like more of my stuff. Twitter, JL Cauvin, JLCAUVIN. I think that's it. Same thing on TikTok. So wherever people choose to follow.
So actually, I've over 500,000 on TikTok. So I would just want to put.
Whoa!
What's your TikTok?
Do you have a blue check mark, like on Instagram? Yeah. Funny thing, people were telling me, oh, you got to get verified on Twitter now. And my bad luck never goes away. It was like they ended the verification program like a week before I went to get verified because they hacked a bunch of verified accounts.
Oh.
This was like a few months ago, I think. So I was just like, of course, I can't even get the check mark.
But what's your TikTok?
Yeah. It's JL Cauvin, also JLCAUVIN. So
cool, man.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean, you've an impressive following on multiple platforms, so you're no slouch.
No.
And you're a friggin' doctor, so look at that.
I'm working hard, man. I'm trying to get my way out. That's what this is all about. Hey, man, thanks so much, JR. I really appreciate you, man. And I think...
Thank you very much. This is a pleasure. Thanks for having me. And thanks for your patience waiting for my response.
Thank you for listening to the Dr. Mudgil podcast. The audio for this podcast can be found on Apple's iTunes and SoundCloud. Let's get it.